The sirens cut through the summer evening like a blade through silk. Officer Martinez thought it was just another noise complaint, neighbors feuding over loud music, maybe a party that got out of hand. But when she arrived at 42 Maple Street, there was no pool. There never had been. Just Karen Whitmore, standing in her pristine front yard, arms crossed, smile razor sharp, watching as 3 squad cars surrounded the house next door, watching as they dragged away a man whose only crime was existing while black in her neighborhood she'd called in a pool party disturbance that didn't exist. Banking on the fact that nobody would question a well-dressed white woman's word, she was wrong. Because this time, someone was recording. And this time, Karen Whitmore had the dispatch call came through at 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday evening that had been otherwise quiet for Officer Maria Martinez. She'd been patrolling the affluent Riverside Heights neighborhood for 6 months now, and the calls were usually predictable. Noise complaints, parking disputes, the occasional domestic disturbance that turned out to be nothing more than a television turned up to loud. Unit 47, we have a noise complaint at 42 Maple Street. The dispatcher's voice crackled through her radio. Caller reports excessive noise from a pool party next door, loud music, possible underage drinking. Martinez frowned as she made a U toward Maple Street, pool party. It was barely 70 degrees outside, and darkness was already settling over the neighborhood. She'd driven past Maple Street dozens of times and couldn't recall seeing any houses with pools. But stranger things had happened. Copy that. Dispatch. ADA 3 minutes. As she turned onto Maple Street, Martinez immediately noticed something off. The tree-lined street was too quiet for a supposed raging pool party. No music thumped from any of the houses. No teenagers' laughter echoed through the air. No wet footprints on driveways or the telltale signs of a gathering that had gotten out of hand. She pulled up to 42 Maple Street, a pristine Tudor-style home with a manicured lawn that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Standing in the front yard, arms crossed and wearing a floral dress that probably cost more than Martinez's monthly rent, was a woman who looked to be in her early 50s. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour, and her makeup was immaculate. She watched Martinez's approach with the kind of intense focus that made the officer's instincts prickle. "Are you the complainant?" Martinez asked as she stepped out of her patrol car. "Karen Whitmore." The woman's voice was crisp, authoritative. "I'm the one who called. Thank goodness you're here quickly. The noise has been absolutely unbearable." Martinez looked around the silent street. "Ma'am, I'm not hearing any noise right now." Karen's smile was sharp as a knife. "Oh, they probably saw your car and turned it down. They're sneaky like that. But trust me, Officer Martinez. Officer Martinez, they've been at it for hours. Loud music, shouting, splashing. I have guests coming over for dinner tomorrow, and I simply cannot have this kind of disturbance in our neighborhood." Something in Karen's tone made Martinez's skin crawl. There was an eagerness there, a barely contained excitement that didn't match the supposed annoyance of a noise complaint. She'd dealt with enough domestic calls to recognize when someone was performing. "Which house is causing the disturbance?" Karen pointed to the house next door, a modest 2-story, colonial, with a small front yard and a Honda Civic parked in the driveway. Unlike Karen's house, this one actually looked lived in, with a child's bicycle on the porch and a small garden that showed signs of recent care. That one, the Washingtons. They moved in about 6 months ago, and it's been nothing but problems. Ever since Martinez noted the way Karen said the name, Washington's like it left a bad taste in her mouth. Another red flag. What kind of problems? "Oh, you know," Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Their music is always too loud. They have people over at all hours. And now this pool party situation. I've tried to be neighborly, but some people just don't understand how to live in a civilized community." Martinez walked toward the Washington house, scanning for signs of the alleged party. The windows were lit, suggesting people were home. But she couldn't hear any music, voices, or the sound of splashing water. As she got closer, she realized something that made her stomach drop. There was no pool. The backyard was visible through a gap in the fence, and it was clear there was no pool, no deck, no signs that there had ever been any kind of pool party. Just a small patio with a grill and a few chairs, and a swing set that suggested young children lived here. "Mrs. Whitmore," Martinez called back to Karen, who was still standing in her front yard, watching. "Are you sure about the pool?" I don't see one. Karen's expression didn't change. Oh, it's one of those above-ground pools, probably in the back. Very unsightly, really. Not the kind of thing you'd expect in a neighborhood like this. Martinez's jaw tightened. She'd been a cop for 8 years, and she knew a lie when she heard one. She also knew exactly what kind of situation she was walking into, and it made her sick to her stomach. Before she could respond, the front door of the Washington house opened. A man stepped out onto the porch toll, maybe 40 years old, wearing a button-down shirt and khakis like he'd just gotten home from work. His expression was confused, but not hostile. "Evening, officer," he said, his voice carrying the careful neutrality that Martinez had heard too many times before. "Is everything all right, David Washington?" Martinez asked. "Yes, sir. Is there a problem?" "We received a noise complaint about a pool party. Can you tell me what you and your family have been doing this evening?" David's confusion deepened. "Pool party, officer. We don't have a pool. My wife and I just finished putting our kids to bed. We've been inside watching Netflix since about 7 o'clock. Any loud music? Guests over?" "No, ma'am. Just us and the kids, 8-year-old twins. They were in bed by 8:30. Martinez felt the familiar burn of anger in her chest. She'd seen this before too many times. A white woman calls the police on a black family for existing banking, on the fact that her word would be taken without question. Usually, it worked. Usually, the responding officers would ask a few questions, maybe issue a warning, and leave the family shaken and humiliated. But not tonight. "Mr. Washington, would you mind if I took a quick look around your property, just to verify theirs?" "No pool," David nodded, though she could see the wariness in his eyes. "Of course. Would you like me to wake up my wife?" "That won't be necessary." As Martinez walked around the house, she was acutely aware of Karen watching from her front yard. The woman had moved closer to the property line, and there was something predatory in her posture, like she was waiting for a show to begin. The backyard confirmed what Martinez already knew. No pool, no signs of a party, just a quiet family home with evidence of children toys scattered on the grass. A small trampoline, chalk drawings on the patio. When she returned to the front yard, David was still standing on his porch, but now he was joined by a woman Martinez assumed was his wife. She was wearing pajamas and a robe, and her expression was a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. "Officer." "What's this about?" the woman asked. "Mrs. Washington, I'm Officer Martinez. We received a complaint about a pool party, but I can see there's no pool on your property." Mrs. Washington's face went pale. "A pool party? We don't. We've been inside all evening. The kids are asleep." Martinez turned back toward Karen, who was still watching from her yard. The woman's expression had shifted, slightly still smug, but with an edge of concern that suggested she was beginning to realize things weren't going according to plan. "Mrs. Whitmore," Martinez called out. "Could you come over here, please?" Karen approached with the measured steps of someone who is used to being in control. "Yes, officer. I've looked around the property, and there's no pool, no signs of a party, no loud music. Can you explain the discrepancy?" Karen's smile never wavered. "Well, maybe they cleaned up quickly when they saw you coming. You know how these people are." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Martinez felt David and his wife tense behind her, and she had to work to keep her own expression neutral. "These people?" Martinez asked quietly. "You know what I mean?" Karen's voice was casual, like she was discussing the weather. "Some people just don't have the same standards." That was it. The mask had slipped just enough to reveal what was underneath, and Martinez felt a cold fury settle in her chest. She'd been a police officer long enough to know that her badge came with power that could be used to protect or to harm. Tonight, she was going to make sure it was used for the right purpose. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to need you to clarify something for me. Are you saying that you called the police to report a pool party that doesn't exist, at a house that doesn't have a pool?" For the first time, Karen's confidence seemed to waver. I heard noise. I assumed it was a pool party." "You assumed?" "Yes. Mrs. Whitmore, filing a false police report is a crime." "Are you sure you want to continue with this version of events?" Karen's face flushed, but her voice remained steady. "I reported what I observed, officer. If you're choosing not to investigate properly, that's on you." Martinez felt her phone buzz in her pocket. She ignored it, focusing. Martinez watched the numbers climb in real time. 20,000 views, 30,000. The comments were pouring in faster than she could read them. but the tone was unmistakable pure, concentrated rage directed at the woman standing 15 feet away, still demanding to speak to a supervisor. "Mrs. Whitmore," Martinez said quietly, slipping her phone back into her pocket. "I think you need to see something." But Karen was on a roll now, her voice rising with each word. "This is absolutely unacceptable. I am a taxpayer in this community, and I demand proper police response to criminal activity. These people move into our neighborhood and think they can Karen." The voice came from across the street. Martinez turned to see a teenage boy, maybe 16, 17, standing in the doorway of a house with his phone held high. His voice carried clearly in the quiet evening air. "Say that again, Karen? Say these people one more time?" "The whole internet is watching now." Karen's face went white. For the first time since Martinez had arrived, the woman looked genuinely afraid. What? What do you mean?" The boy Martinez could see now that he was mixed race, probably Latino and white, stepped fully onto his porch. "I mean, I've been live streaming this whole thing, for my TikTok. Thought it might be interesting to see what happened when the cops showed up." He grinned, and there was something predatory in it that reminded Martinez of Karen's earlier expression. "Turns out, it was very interesting. You can't record me without my permission." "Actually, I can." "Public space? Lady, first." "Amendment." The boy's thumb moved across his phone screen. "Ooh, look at this. 47,000 views and climbing. The comments are ... Wow, they are not happy with you, Karen." Martinez felt a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. She'd seen enough viral incidents to know how this played out. The internet was judge, jury, and executioner, and it didn't believe in proportionate response. Karen Whitmore was about to learn that lesson the hard way. "Turn it off," Karen said, her voice cracking. "Turn it off right now. No can do. This is too good." The boy looked directly at his phone camera. "Hey everyone, this is Karen Whitmore of 42 Maple Street in Riverside Heights." She called the cops on her black neighbors and claimed they were having a pool party. Spoiler alert, there's no pool. David Washington had been silent through most of the exchange, but now he stepped forward. "Son, maybe you should..." "Nah, Mr. Washington. This lady's been harassing you for months. My mom told me about it. About how she calls the city every time you guys have a barbecue, how she complained to the HOA about your kids' bikes being on the porch." The boy's voice was gaining confidence as he spoke. "She even called animal control on your dog. Said it was aggressive, a golden retriever puppy." Martinez looked at Karen, whose face had gone from white to red to something approaching purple. "Is that true, Mrs. Whitmore?" That's not." The dog was barking. It was 3 months old, David said quietly. "And it was barking because someone was setting off fireworks in their backyard at midnight. We found out later it was Mrs. Whitmore's son." The puzzle pieces were clicking into place for Martinez. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was the culmination of months of harassment, a pattern of behavior designed to make the Washington family's life miserable. Karen had been escalating, and tonight she'd made the mistake of thinking she could weaponize the police the same way she'd weaponized code enforcement and animal control. 58,000 views, the boy announced cheerfully. "Oh, and someone just posted your address in the comments. And your phone number." "Wow, they work fast." Karen's phone started ringing. Then it rang again, and again. "Turn it off," she whispered, but now she was talking to her phone, not to the boy. She fumbled with the device, trying to decline the calls, but they kept coming. Martinez's radio crackled. "Unit 47, we're getting multiple calls about a disturbance at your location. Social media related. Do you need backup? Negative. Dispatch. Situation is under control." But that wasn't entirely true. The situation was spiraling in ways that Martinez had never experienced. She could see lights coming on in houses up and down the street as neighbors emerged to see what was happening. Most of them were looking at their phones, and from their expressions, they were seeing the same thing the rest of the internet was seeing. "Mrs. Whitmore," Martinez said, trying to regain control of the situation, "I think you should go inside. I'm not going anywhere until you arrest them." Karen's voice was shrill, now desperate. "They're disturbing the peace. They're ruining everything. Ma'am, the only person who's disturbed the peace tonight is you. You filed a false police report, and now you're creating an actual disturbance." This is insane. Karen turned toward the boy with the phone. You're ruining my life. Nah, lady, you did that yourself. I'm just making sure everyone gets to see it. Martinez's phone buzzed with a text from her sergeant. Whatever's happening on Maple Street, handle it quietly. Chiefs getting calls. Too late for quiet, Martinez thought. Way too late. Karen's phone had stopped ringing, but now she was frantically typing on it. I'm calling my lawyer. This is harassment. This is a violation of my rights. 69,000 views, the boy announced. Nice. Oh, and someone just found your Facebook page. Lots of interesting posts there, Karen. Lots of opinions about your neighbors. Martinez watched Karen's face cycle through a range of emotions: rage, fear, panic, and finally, something that might have been recognition. The woman was beginning to understand that her carefully constructed world was crumbling in real time. This isn't fair, Karen whispered. This isn't how it's supposed to work. How is it supposed to work? David Washington asked. The question was quiet, but it carried the weight of months of frustration. How is it supposed to work when you call the police on my family for existing? When you report my kids for riding their bikes? When you tried to get our dog taken away, I was just ... I was trying to maintain standards. Whose standards? Mrs. Washington had joined her husband on the porch. She was still in her pajamas, but her voice was steady and strong. Your standards. The standards that say we don't belong here. Karen opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came out. Around them, the crowd of neighbors was growing. Martinez could see phones everywhere, recording, streaming, documenting every moment of Karen's downfall. 75,000 views, the boy said. And climbing? Oh, this is good. Someone just posted a link to your employer's website, Riverside Real Estate, right? They're getting review bombed. Karen's face went ashen. My job. You can't. I have a family, so do they, the boy said, nodding toward the Washingtons. But that didn't stop you from trying to destroy theirs. Martinez felt her radio crackle again. Unit 47, we have reports of protesters gathering outside Riverside. Real estate. Do you have an ETA on resolving the situation? Protesters. It had been less than an hour since the video went live, and there were already protesters. Martinez had underestimated the speed and fury of internet justice. Dispatch. I'm going to need a supervisor on scene? Copy that. Sergeant Miller is en route. Karen was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Please, she said to the boy with the phone. Please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Just ... Please turn it off. Oh, now you're sorry. Now that your life is falling apart, you're sorry. The boy's voice was cold. Were you sorry when you called the cops on Mr. Washington for washing his car in his own driveway? Were you sorry when you told Mrs. Washington that she should go back where she came from at the grocery store? Martinez looked at David Washington, who nodded grimly. Last month, he said, in front of our kids, 87,000 views, the boy announced. And someone just started a GoFundMe for the Washington family. Already raised $3,000. Karen's phone rang again. This time, she answered it. Hello. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, this is Karen Whitmore. What? No, I can explain. Please, you can't. I've been with the company for 12 years. Martinez watched as Karen's face crumpled. The woman sank to her knees in her perfect front yard, still holding the phone to her ear. Please, Karen whispered into the phone. Please, I have a mortgage. I have kids in college. I can't. This isn't who I am. But the damage was done. Martinez could see it in the way the neighbors were looking at Karen, in the way the boy behind the camera was grinning, in the way David and his wife were standing a little straighter on their porch. Ma'am, Martinez said quietly, I think you should go inside now. Karen looked up at her, makeup streaked down her face, perfect hair disheveled. This isn't over, she said. This isn't fair. I'm going to fight this. Fight what? Exactly. All of it. The video. The harassment. The threats. I'm going to sue everyone. I'm going to make them pay. Martinez almost felt sorry for her, almost because Karen Whitmore still didn't understand what she'd done wrong. She thought she was the victim here. She thought the problem was that she'd been caught, not that she'd spent months terrorizing her neighbors. 93,000 views, the boy called out. Oh, and Karen, your son's fraternity just posted a statement distancing themselves from you. Looks like little Bradley is getting some heat at college. Karen's scream was inhuman, a sound of pure anguish that echoed off the houses and By morning, Karen Whitmore's name was trending in 17 countries. The video had been shared, remixed, and dissected across every social media platform imaginable. TikTok users had created response videos. Twitter had spawned a dozen hashtags. Reddit had 3 different threads analyzing her body language. Someone had even auto-tuned her voice, saying these people into a remix that was climbing the viral charts. But the real damage was happening in the places that mattered, the places where Karen's carefully constructed life intersected with reality. Riverside Real Estate's website had crashed from the volume of negative reviews. Their phone lines were jammed with calls demanding Karen's termination. The company's Facebook page was flooded with 1-star ratings and comments, calling for boycotts. At 6:47 a.m., Karen's phone rang. "Karen, this is Richard." Her boss's voice was tight, controlled. "We need to talk." "Richard, thank God. This whole thing is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "No, Karen, you can't. I've seen the video. We all have." The entire management team had an emergency meeting at 5 this morning. Karen's stomach dropped. "Richard, please. I've been with the company for 12 years. My sales numbers are your sales numbers, don't matter, when our biggest client just canceled a $2 million listing because they don't want to be associated with us. When half our agents are threatening to quit if we don't take action. When we're getting death threats because of something you did, death threats." Karen's voice was barely a whisper. "Check your email, Karen. Check your social media. Check the news. You're not just fired, you're radioactive. No real estate company in this city will touch you." The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone for a long moment, then opened her laptop. The notifications were overwhelming, of emails, missed calls, messages across every platform she'd ever signed up for. Her Facebook page had been flooded with comments, most of them unprintable. Her LinkedIn profile had been shared with the caption, "Do not hire this racist." But it was the news coverage that made her blood run cold. Local realtor goes viral. For racist 911 call, read the headline on Channel 7's website. They'd used her professional headshot, the one where she was smiling. Perfectly groomed, the picture of suburban success. Below it, they'd embedded the video and a statement from Riverside Real Estate announcing her immediate termination. Channel 9 had gone further. Pool Party Karen, a pattern of harassment. They'd interviewed 3 other neighbors who detailed months of complaints, false reports, and increasingly aggressive behavior. Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down talked about how Karen had called code enforcement on her for having too many cars in her driveways he'd been hosting her daughter's graduation party. Mr. Rodriguez described how Karen had followed his teenage son home from school, demanding to know if he belonged in the neighborhood. The Washington family had given a joint interview that was devastating in its restraint. They spoke calmly about months of harassment, about their children asking why the angry lady didn't like them, about feeling unwelcome in their own neighborhood. They didn't call for revenge or retribution. They simply told their story, and their dignity made Karen's behavior look even more monstrous by comparison. But the story that made Karen's hands shake was the one about her son. College student faces backlash over mother's viral racism, read the headline from the university newspaper. Bradley Whitmore, a junior at State University and member of Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity, had been identified as Karen's son within hours of the video going viral. The fraternity had issued a statement condemning racism and announcing they were reviewing Bradley's membership. The article included screenshots of social media posts where Bradley had defended his mother, calling the backlash reverse racism and claiming his family was being persecuted. Those posts had backfired spectacularly. Now Bradley was facing his own wave of online fury with calls for his expulsion from both the university and the fraternity. Someone had created a petition demanding his removal from student government. Another petition called for him to be banned from campus entirely. Karen's phone rang again. This time it was Bradley. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" His voice was panicked, desperate. "They're saying I might get kicked out of school. My friends won't talk to me. Sarah broke up with me. The dean wants to see me this afternoon. Bradley, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was just trying to what? Ruin my life. Destroy everything I've worked for." Bradley's voice cracked. Do you have any idea what you've done? I can't show my face on campus. People are throwing things at my car. Someone put dog shit on my dorm room door. It'll blow over. These things always blow over. No, Mom, they don't. Not anymore. This is permanent. This is forever. When I graduate, when I apply for jobs, when I try to do anything with my life, this is going to follow me because of you. Bradley, I can't talk to you right now. I can't. I need to figure out how to fix this. The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, then at her laptop screen, then around her pristine living room that suddenly felt like a prison. She'd built this life carefully, methodically, the house in the right neighborhood, the job with the respectable company, the son at the good college, the perfect image of suburban success. All of it was gone. Her phone buzzed with a text from her ex-husband. What the hell is wrong with you? Emma's classmates are showing her the video. She's asking why mommy hates black people. Fix this. Emma, their 12-year-old daughter, who lived with her father most of the time but spent weekends with Karen. Sweet, innocent Emma, who went to a diverse school and had friends of every color and background. Emma, who was now seeing her mother, called a racist on national television. Karen tried calling her ex-husband, but the call went straight to voicemail. She tried calling Emma directly, but got the same result. She sent a text, "Please let me explain to Emma. Please don't let this ruin our relationship." The response came quickly. "Our custody agreement is being reviewed. My lawyer will be in touch." Karen's world was collapsing faster than she could process. Every pillar of her life, her job, her reputation, her relationships with her children, was crumbling simultaneously, and the internet wasn't done with her yet. Someone had found her old social media posts. Screenshots were circulating of her. Complaints about urban music being too loud, her comments about certain people not maintaining their properties, her theories about declining property values correlating with neighborhood demographics. Posts that had seemed innocuous in her social media bubble were being held up as evidence of a pattern of racism. Her sorority had posted a statement distancing themselves from her. The country club, where she'd been a member for 8 years, had quietly suspended her membership. Her book club had sent a polite but firm email explaining that she was no longer welcome. Even her own family was turning away. Her sister had posted on Facebook, "I do not condone or support my sister's actions. Racism has no place in our family or our society." Her mother had called crying, asking how Karen could have embarrassed the family this way. But it was the knock on her door at 2 p.m. that really drove home how completely her life had changed. Karen looked through the peephole and saw a reporter and camera crew. Behind them, she could see neighbors gathering, phones out recording. The circus had come to her front yard. "Mrs. Whitmore, this is Jessica Chen from Channel 7 News. We'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to the allegations of racist harassment." Karen didn't open the door. Instead, she closed all the blinds and sat in her darkened living room, listening to the growing crowd outside. She could hear them talking, laughing, taking pictures of her house. Someone was playing the viral video from their phone, and she could hear her own voice saying these people over and over again. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We know where you live, racist bitch. You better watch your back." Then another, "Hope you rot in hell." And another, "Your son is a piece of shit just like his mother." The messages kept coming. Hundreds of them. Death threats, rape threats, promises of violence. Her address was public now, shared across dozens of platforms. Her phone number, her email, her place of work, everything about her life had been doxed and distributed to an army of angry strangers. Karen turned off her phone and laptop, but the damage was done. The crowd outside her house was growing larger. Someone had brought a speaker and was playing the auto-tuned remix of her voice. Others were chanting, "No pool, no party." Children rode by on bicycles, slowing down to stare at the house where the racist lady lived. As afternoon turned to evening, Karen realized that her old life was truly over. The woman who had woken up yesterday morning as a successful real estate agent, a respected member of her community, a mother with 2 children in good schools, that woman was gone forever. In her place was pool party Karen, internet villain, viral racist, cautionary tale. That was her identity now, and no amount of apologies or explanations would change it. The internet had spoken, and its verdict was final. Karen Whitmore was canceled. But as she sat in her darkened house, listening to the crowd outside celebrate her downfall, Karen felt something new rising in her chest. Not shame or regret, but anger, white-hot, all-consuming rage. They wanted to destroy her. Fine. But if she was go. The response to Karen's blog post was immediate and catastrophic. Within an hour, #KarenDoubledown was trending alongside #PoolPartyKaren. Screenshots of her defiant statement were being shared with commentary that ranged from incredulous laughter to genuine outrage. The original video had been damaging enough, but Karen's refusal to apologize, her insistence that she was the victim, had transformed her. From a sympathetic figure who might have eventually been forgiven, into a symbol of everything wrong with privileged white America. She called the Washingtons criminals and thugs. Read a viral tweet with 200,000 likes. David Washington is a pediatric nurse. His wife is an elementary school teacher. Their biggest crime was existing while black in suburbia. The backlash reached levels that even seasoned internet observers found shocking. Karen's blog crashed within 2 hours from the traffic surge. Her home address was being shared alongside photos of her house. Someone had created a map marking every business she'd ever been associated with, encouraging boycotts and protests. But it was the discovery of her past that truly destroyed her. Amateur. Internet investigators had begun digging through years of Karen's digital footprint, and what they found painted a picture of systematic racism that went far beyond a single 911 call. Old forum posts where she complained about urban invasion of her neighborhood, property records showing she'd filed complaints against 17 different neighbors over the years, all of them people of color, a Nextdoor post from 3 years ago where she'd described a suspicious man walking through the neighborhood, a man who turned out to be the mailman. The most damaging discovery came from her old job in property management. A former tenant came forward with documentation showing that Karen had systematically rejected rental applications from minority applicants, using coded language about fit and neighborhood standards. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Karen Whitmore isn't just a racist. Read a viral Medium post that was being shared across platforms. She's a racist with power who has been systematically using that power to exclude and harass people of color for years. The pool party call wasn't an isolated incident, it was the culmination of a pattern of behavior that has real victims. Those victims were coming forward now. Mrs. Rodriguez, whose application for a rental property had been rejected by Karen 5 years earlier, appeared on 3 news programs detailing the experience. A black family described how Karen had called the police on their teenage son for loitering when he was waiting for his ride after school. An elderly Korean War veteran talked about Karen filing noise complaints during his family's memorial service for his deceased wife. Each story painted Karen as a woman who had weaponized the systems of power, police code enforcement, property management against anyone who didn't fit her vision of an acceptable neighbor. The Washington family, meanwhile, was experiencing their own complicated relationship with their newfound fame. The GoFundMe set up for them had raised over $75,000. 3 colleges had offered. Bradley, Washington, full scholarships. David had been invited to speak at a conference on racial bias in healthcare. Local businesses were lining up to show their support. But fame was a double-edged sword. Their home address was as public as Karen's now. While most of the attention was positive, they were also receiving their share of hate mail from Karen's supporters, a smaller but vocal group that viewed her as a victim of cancel culture and reverse racism. "It's overwhelming," Angela Washington told a reporter from the Washington Post. "We just wanted to live quietly and raise our children. We never asked for any of this attention." The attention was about to get much more intense. On Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after the original incident, Karen Whitmore appeared on America First with Tucker Branson, a right-wing talk show known for controversial takes on racial issues. Branson announced to his audience of 3 million viewers. Karen had clearly spent time preparing for this appearance. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She wore a conservative blue dress and a small American flag pin. The transformation from the disheveled woman screaming in her front yard was remarkable. "Tucker, thank you for giving me a platform to tell my side of the story," Karen said, her voice steady and controlled. "What happened to me could happen to any American who dares to stand up for law and order in their community." Tell us what really happened that night, Karen. Version of events was masterfully crafted. She described months of disturbances from her neighbors, late-night parties, suspicious visitors. She claimed she'd tried to address the issues diplomatically, but had been met with hostility and threats. The 911 call, she insisted, was a last resort from a frightened woman trying to protect her community. "I never mentioned race," Karen said, looking directly into the camera. "Not once. The officer asked me about noise, and I reported noise. The fact that people are making this about race says more about them than it does about me." "And what about the pool?" Branson asked. "I made an honest mistake. I heard splashing sounds and assumed there was a pool. Is that a crime? Is making an honest mistake now grounds for destroying someone's entire life?" It was a calculated performance designed to appeal to viewers who saw themselves in Karen's situation, suburban whites who felt under attack, who believed they were the real victims of America's racial reckoning. The interview sparked a predictable division. Karen's supporters rallied around her America First narrative, creating their own hashtags and fundraising campaigns. Conservative commentators praised her courage in fighting back against the mob. A crowdfunding campaign raised $50,000 for her legal defense fund in less than 24 hours. But the backlash was even more intense. Media critics dissected every word of her interview, pointing out the contradictions and lies. The original video was analyzed frame by frame, with experts explaining how Karen's body language and word choices revealed her true motivations. "She's gaslighting the entire country," wrote a popular Twitter account with 2 million followers. "She's asking us to ignore what we saw with our own eyes and believe her carefully crafted narrative instead." The culture war battle lines were drawn, with Karen Whitmore at the center. She became a symbol for both sides. To conservatives, she represented the persecution of traditional values. To progressives, she embodied the entitled racism that had gone unchecked for too long. The real casualties, as always, were the people caught in the crossfire. Bradley Whitmore had been expelled from his fraternity and suspended from student government. The university was conducting a formal investigation into his fitness to continue his education. His girlfriend had broken up with him. His friends had abandoned him. The confident young man who had defended his mother on social media was now seeing a therapist and taking medication for anxiety and depression. Emma Whitmore, Karen's 12-year-old daughter, had been pulled out of school by her father after classmates began bullying her about her mother's viral infamy. A child psychologist was helping her understand that her mother's actions didn't reflect on her, but the damage was already done. She'd asked her father if she could change her last name, but it was the Washington family who faced the most complex consequences. While the financial support had been life-changing, the constant media attention was taking its toll. Their 8-year-old twins were struggling with the sudden scrutiny. David had taken a leave of absence from the hospital after receiving threats. Angela was considering moving the family away from Riverside Heights, despite having just bought their dream home. "We wanted justice," David told his wife one evening as they watched protesters march past their house, some supporting them, others supporting Karen. "But this doesn't feel like justice. This feels like chaos." The chaos was about to reach its breaking point. On Friday evening, exactly 8 days after the original incident, someone threw a brick through the Washington family's front window. Attached to the brick was a note. "This is what you get for ruining a good woman's life." Simultaneously, someone else threw a Molotov cocktail at Karen's house. It failed to ignite properly, but the message was clear. The online battle was spilling into the real world. Both incidents were captured on surveillance cameras and live-streamed by neighbors. Within hours, the videos were viral, adding new fuel to an already raging fire. The mayor of Riverside Heights called an emergency press conference. "This has gone too far," she announced. "We will not tolerate violence in our community, regardless of the underlying issues. Anyone who commits acts of vandalism or violence will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." But the mayor's words fell on deaf ears. The internet had moved beyond the original incident. Karen Whitmore and the Washington family had become symbols in a larger cultural war. And symbols don't get to control their own narratives. As Saturday dawned, both families were under police protection. Protesters from both sides had descended on Riverside Heights, turning the quiet suburban street into a battleground. News vans lined the block, Helicopters circled overhead. The National Guard was on standby. Karen sat in her damaged house, watching the chaos through her boarded-up windows and realized 3 months later, Maple Street was quiet again. The news vans had moved on to other stories. The protesters had found new causes, but the scars remained, carved deep into the lives of everyone who had been caught in the storm. Karen Whitmore's house sat empty, a for sale sign tilting in the overgrown front yard. Graffiti covered the garage door, some supporting her, most condemning her. The realtor had lowered the price 3 times. Some said she'd moved to a small town in Montana where no one had internet. Others claimed she'd had plastic surgery and was living under an assumed name in Florida. The truth was that no one really cared anymore. Whitmore had been expelled from State University. The investigation into his social media posts and his defense of his mother had revealed a pattern of racist comments and behavior that the administration deemed incompatible with the university's values. He'd lost his fraternity, his girlfriend, his friends, and his future. The last anyone had heard, he was working at a gas station in Ohio. Now 13, was living full-time with her father in a different state. She'd legally changed her name to Emma Sullivan. Taking her father's surname, she was in therapy, trying to understand how the mother she'd loved could have become a symbol of hatred. Her father had filed for sole custody and won without Cantus Corin. It hadn't even shown up to the hearing. The Washington family had moved away from Riverside Heights 2 months after the incident. The constant attention, the threats, the feeling of being specimens in a social experiment had become unbearable. They'd used the GoFundMe money to put a down payment on a house in a different city where they hoped their children could grow up without being known as the pool party Karen victims, but even there, they couldn't escape the legacy of that night. Had endured. Angela had been offered a book deal to tell their story, but she'd turned it down. They just wanted to be a normal family again, but that seemed impossible in a world where everything was content. Officer Martinez still patrolled Riverside Heights, but the job had changed for her. Every call now came with the potential for viral infamy. Every interaction was potentially being recorded, analyzed, and judged by millions of strangers. She found herself second-guessing decisions that used to be instinctive, wondering how her actions would play on social media. The teenager who had live-streamed the original Confrontation, Marcus Chun, had leveraged his viral fame into a social media career. He now had 800,000 followers across platforms and made a living creating content about social justice issues. But sometimes, late at night, he wondered if he'd done the right thing. He'd set out to expose injustice, but had he just fed innocent people to the internet's hunger for outrage? Dr. Sarah Kim, a sociologist at the local university, had been studying the Whitmore case as part of her research into viral justice. Her findings were disturbing. What we saw with Pool Party Karen wasn't justice, she explained to a small audience at an academic conference. It was a digital mob executing punishment without trial, without proportionality, without any consideration. For collateral damage, Karen Whitmore was racist. Her behavior was wrong. But the response destroyed not just her life, but the lives of her children. Dr. Kim's research had found that viral justice cases often followed the same pattern. A legitimate grievance gets amplified beyond all reason, destroying not just the perpetrator, but anyone connected to them. The internet's hunger for moral clarity created villains and heroes, where reality was usually more complex. The Washington family deserved support and justice, Dr. Kim continued, but they also deserved privacy and the right to heal without being turned into symbols. Instead, they became involuntary participants in a national conversation about race that they never asked to join. In an era where viral videos seemed like the only way to hold powerful people accountable, Dr. Kim was suggesting that the cure might be worse than the disease, but her research was backed by hard data. Families affected by viral incidents showed elevated rates of depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Children of viral figures, both perpetrators and victims, struggled with identity issues and social integration. The psychological damage often lasted years longer than the initial viral moment. We've created a system where the punishment for social infractions is essentially social death, Dr. Kim concluded. And we've decided that collateral damage to families, to children, to communities is acceptable as long as we feel like justice is being served. His homework when he looked up and asked, "Mom, why do people still recognize us sometimes?" Angela paused. Considering how to explain to an 8-year-old that his family had become unwilling participants in a national conversation about race and justice, she said carefully, "But we didn't do anything wrong." "No, baby, we didn't do anything wrong. Then why do we have to keep moving and changing schools?" Angela didn't have a good answer for that. How do you explain to a child that being the victim of injustice doesn't protect you from becoming collateral damage in the fight against it? Across the country, in a small town where nobody knew her real name, Karen Whitmore was working the night shift at a 24-hour diner. She'd dyed her hair brown and wore glasses she didn't need. She'd gained 30 pounds and aged 10 years in 3 months. The woman who had once sold million-dollar homes now served coffee to truckers and late-night drunks for minimum wage plus tips. She'd tried to rebuild her life several times, but the internet had a long memory. Every job application was rejected once they Googled her name. Every apartment rental fell through when landlords discovered who she was, a more marginal existence. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years trying to keep undesirable people out of her neighborhood, and now she was the undesirable one, relegated to the margins of society she'd never acknowledged existed. Sometimes, during the quiet hours of her shift, Karen would think about that night on Maple Street. She'd replay the conversation with Officer Martinez, wondering what would have happened if she'd just admitted there was no pool, if she'd apologized for the false report, if she'd taken responsibility for her actions, but mostly, she tried not to think at all. Thinking led to regret. And regret led to a darkness she wasn't sure she could climb out of. She'd written letters to her children, dozens of them, but never sent any. What could she say? That she was sorry, that she'd been wrong, that her racism had destroyed their family. The words felt hollow even to her, and she knew they'd sound even emptier to Bradley and Emma. The truth was that Karen Whitmore was still the same person who had called the police on her neighbors for the crime of existing while black. Prison might have reformed her. Therapy might have helped her understand her prejudices. Genuine accountability might have led to growth. But viral justice didn't offer any of those options. It offered only destruction. And destruction, it turned out. A documentary crew tried to interview everyone involved. Most declined to participate. David Washington released a statement. "My family has moved on. We ask that you respect our privacy and allow us to heal." Marcus Chen, the teenager who filmed the original video, gave a brief interview but seemed uncomfortable with the attention. "I don't regret exposing racism," he said, "but sometimes I wonder if there could have been a better way." Officer Martinez declined to be interviewed entirely. Karen Whitmore couldn't be located for comment. The documentary was never completed. Even the filmmakers seemed to realize that there was no satisfying narrative to be found in the wreckage. Left behind by viral justice, the internet had moved on to new outrages, new villains, new heroes, a cautionary tale that nobody seemed to learn from. But on Maple Street, the Washington family's former house had new owners, a young Latino couple with twin toddlers. They'd gotten a good deal on the property because of its history, and they were slowly renovating it. Painting over the memories of that terrible night. Next door, Karen's house remained empty. The price had been reduced again, but still no buyers. It stood as a monument to the destructive power of viral fame, a reminder that in the age of social media, everyone was just one video away from having their life destroyed. The new neighbors didn't.